listening to the Christ Our Cornerstone podcast, a ministry of Christ Our Cornerstone Church in O'Neill, Nebraska. I'm Pastor Logan Merrick, and it's our prayer that this message strengthens your faith and draws you closer to Christ. Let's dive in. All right. Hello. Welcome to the Christ Our Cornerstone Church podcast. This is a mailbag edition where I don't preach a sermon, but I do answer questions that come in. And today is kind of a special one because we got a question. And the question that came in was one of a little bit more difficult one in the sense of like, I know that I know my limits when it comes to theology and creation. And I happen to have someone that specializes in this area. And so today we're going to be talking about dinosaurs, and specifically dinosaurs, creation, Noah's flood, Noah's Ark, and all that stuff. And so I figured the best thing I can do is bring on my son, Noah, who loves and has studied dinosaurs and the flood account and all of the things. Here's the deal. I only have one microphone because we could not find the other microphone. So we're going to be swapping this microphone back and forth. So bear with us. So Noah, good to see you. Thanks for coming into my office/podcast studio. And we're going to get started with talking about dinosaurs. So Noah, hello.
Hello.
And you're going to have to probably come closer so I don't pull stuff off here. All right. So Noah, the question came in and it said, Pastor Logan, could you do a podcast on dinosaurs? I said, anything in particular? And they said, I'm just curious of where they fit into the Bible. Did they die in the flood, and were they on the ark? So Noah, we both agree dinosaurs are in the Bible. We see that in Job, right? If you want to.
Yeah, so in the book of Job, when it talks about Behemoth, it describes it as it eats grass like an ox. It's super big, and most people are like, and biblical translators are like, oh, it's an elephant or a hippo. But then I don't remember which verse it is. It might be like 13. It says he makes his tail like a cedar tree. And in my Bible, it says it's probably just an exaggeration. I'm like, well, how are we exaggerating that? But so there's only one animal that God created that is on land that ever had a tail like that.
So when you say your Bible says it's probably exaggeration, you mean the notes at the bottom, right? Not in the actual passage.
On the bottom says that the cedar tree thing is probably just an exaggeration, which to me, I'm like, why would we be exaggerating the tail of an elephant being like a cedar tree? But the dinosaur that fits that most would be like a brachiosaurus or any of like the long necked dinosaurs. If you've seen the movie Jurassic Park, it's just the first one that they see when they arrive on the island.
Jurassic Park, another thing that you're very versed in and getting detailed about. You've read the book when you were in 6th grade. You've seen all of the movies. You collect all the things. So with Behemoth could Behemoth also be what's the dinosaur that has like the tail that's like has the round rocks or whatever. Yeah, the club at the end.
So that would be Ankylosaurus. I think it is possible that it could honestly be any of the big herbivores. But just because of like the size, how it emphasizes like this thing is big, this thing is super strong, it's massive, it fits the long necks better. And specifically, I would say it's maybe a Titanosaurus, which was like the biggest long neck dinosaur that we know of. And that to me is like, I'm not saying like, oh, like that's definitely what it is. But me and my nerd side, I'm like, well, this is the biggest one. I just like to think that this is the one that Job saw.
So that's Behemoth. And then I have talked in service before about why I think Jonah was swallowed up by Leviathan, and they believe Leviathan was a dinosaur, is a dinosaur, right?
Well, scientifically wouldn't be a dinosaur, because dinosaurs are any land reptile that its legs are under. That's why like chameleons, turtles, even snakes don't have legs, so that's why they're canceled out. But their legs and limbs are on the sides of their bodies rather than under. And it also has to do with like the type of hip bone that they have, because there's hip bone. Like there's bird hip boned dinosaurs, and then there's reptile. Though a lot of the bird hipped ones are probably just birds to begin with. So Leviathan would probably be, if it is something that is now extinct, like a plesiosaurus, which is like, it has basically the body of a seal but a long neck and a lizard head. Probably seen, or if you've seen the Jurassic World movie, the big one in the aquatic exhibit that eats the sharks. Mosasaurus is another one. And there's even other stuff that's just really massive that could very well be Leviathan. And because it describes it as spitting fire, if we take that literal, that is like actually like, that means that there were things in the water that could have breathed fire, and even on the land that breathed fire.
So real life dragons.
Real life dragons.
That's pretty cool.
I think actually in Isaiah, he mentions like flying dragons, which those would be like pterodactyl. They'd be like pterosaurs. So the Bible has like several areas where it touches on things that sound like what everybody just categorizes as dinosaurs.
So do you think that when God created everything, now we let me go ahead and preface it like this for those that are listening. We don't know. We weren't there at creation. So, but I know you read all the things in regards to dinosaurs, and you have a lot of feelings. You and I have many discussions on where we disagree on dinosaurs, the Bible. I do believe that the Bible does discuss dinosaurs, and we just differ on some other things. And so, do you think that dinosaurs were created in the creation account, or were they created separately in the creation account? What do you think?
So I think that they were made on day 6, just because I'm like, these things were animals that existed, and day 6 it says that God made every creeping, crawling beast of the field, all that stuff. So to me, I'm like, well, day 6.
So when it comes to the next part of the question, which was, were they in the flood, all the things, were they on the ark? Because we've been to the ark encounter. They do say that there were dinosaurs on the ark. I asked you today, I said, I think it's ridiculous. I don't agree with that. You said, well, Dad, you're an idiot. No, he did not say that. But he pushed back, and I said, because we talked about kinds of animals. Like we have wolves that ultimately would be a kind of dog, right? Like, so, and I said, well, we don't really have that with dinosaurs. And that's where you went in. We're like, well, dinosaur isn't a kind. So go into a little bit of that.
Yeah. So kind, I don't remember what the Hebrew word is, but we don't really know what it means. It's like either like family, species, genus. It could be whatever. We're just taking it to mean like what can interbreed. So like foxes, wolves, dogs, they can all breed together. So that's why we have a dog kind. Dinosaurs, you have, like as I was talking about sauropods earlier, that would be like a kind, but within that you have different types that may not have been able to interbreed. Just like in real life, you have stuff that can be categorized as fish, but not all fish can interbreed together. Like a shark can't breed with a goldfish, but is technically a fish. So I forgot the question because I was just yeah.
So from there, we want to ask, were they on the ark? Because I got us off just saying like where you and I kind of disagree on different things. I don't think they were on the ark. You do. Why do you think they were on the ark? And we'll go from there.
Yes, so I believe that they were on the ark because God said take 2 of every kind of animal. So that means that there were dinosaurs that did die in the flood because obviously Noah didn't take every single animal that was around at the time onto the ark. But also, I think a lot of the reason why everyone struggles so much with that idea is they picture like these massive, the size of a house, dinosaurs. But really, like it would have just, they were juveniles. Like Noah wouldn't have taken grown adults because grown adults would have been close to the end of their peak breeding time, like when they could have children. It would make more sense if they were younger because when they got off, they still would have had years and years and years that they could use to have babies. So like most of the animals on the ark were like the size of a beagle. And then the dinosaurs were probably only they were teenagers. They were like maybe the size of a car, like a truck. They weren't super big. So yeah, that's why I'm like, yeah, some did die in the flood. There's a lot of famous fossils that only work if they would have died in the flood. And the way you get a fossil is once it dies, it has to be buried like instantly. Because it cannot get, because oxygen, scavengers, all that would find it. And when it starts to decompose, the bones, there's little holes in your bones, pores, and that absorbs all the dirt. It has to be like specific kind of mud. And then it turns basically into rock. Some of the most famous ones is like an ancient like fish species, like halfway giving birth. It's like basically halfway out. There's another one where 2 dinosaurs are fighting. In both of them, it's like it was just in the process of giving birth. They were just fighting. Like if it was something like a meteorite, like that was sending all this dust, they would have seen the giant meteorite like coming down. They would have known. A flood is just like all this water and all this dirt because the Bible says that the depths burst open so that the ground like split apart and all the water like rushed out and it was raining. So like there's no time to react to that. It's just like you just see it, you're dead, whatever. But then there were some that were on the ark that when they got off, and that's like a whole nother thing. Is that okay? Yes. So the ark is what caused the ice age. Okay. Yeah.
So here's where we're going with this. So the question then becomes, okay, so there were dinosaurs. We know they're fossils. So we know dinosaurs existed. So the dinosaurs were on the ark. Why aren't they here now? What would have happened to them? Why are they not here now?
Yeah, so that's where we get to the ice age. Before the flood, you think like, oh, like it didn't rain. It was a desert. Not like sand and like all that kind of desert, like the geographical, like little to no rainfall. The climate before the flood was like subtropical. There was like a big humidity dome. And when you have all this water that just was 10,000 feet of water that was over the earth, you are just like cooling the atmosphere. So when you get off, you're going to have cool summers and you're going to have warm oceans, which would have allowed for a ton of snowfall, 500 years of snow, and then 200 years of melt in the northern regions. So as they would have spread across, there would have been less food of the dietary things that they would have eaten. So you have all these herbivores not having what they were used to eating. And when those die of hunger, you have all these carnivores that have to eat a lot of meat. They don't have their prey of choice anymore. So because of all the atmospheric change, and then also man didn't eat meat before the flood. It wasn't until after the flood that God was like, hey, all these things, you can eat them. So on top of that, because that was a thing, you have all these other people groups that are like, okay, this is a big animal. let's try eating it.
So you're saying between the Ice Age and hunting, that's what killed off the remainder of the dinosaurs type things. Are there anything now that are alive that would have been a dinosaur?
Dinosaur?
Yeah, like is there something like an alligator? Is an alligator or a crocodile considered a modern day dinosaur?
Their legs are on the sides of their body. Secular scientists would be like, yeah, it's birds, but because we don't believe that dinosaurs evolved into birds, there is no living thing that is a dinosaur, which is also why, like, if you know anything about like Colossus genetics, they're trying to bring back the mammoth. The only reason that they can do any of the stuff that they're doing is because it has a modern descendant. They're using Indian elephants. The dire wolves are using wolves, and even though it's not a full thing, it's like 0.02%, not exactly, but it's like barely anything of that animal. The reason why we can't do the same for dinosaurs is because we don't have a modern descendant of dinosaurs.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. I think we've pretty much kind of covered, is there any final thoughts that you're like, yeah, in a matter of 20 minutes, we have tried to answer the question. So yes, dinosaurs were in the Bible.
Yep.
Yes, dinosaurs lived with man. Like they weren't two different, times in the timeline,
like we know that dinosaurs and man were together. I don't remember fossil wise. I think that we have found some stuff where it's like modern animals that existed with man that in the secular worldview didn't exist until man did, or in the same fossil layer as dinosaurs, which for us, if you start at the bottom of a fossil layer, you have all these aquatic animals and you slowly go up. Man's at the top. Well, in the case of a flood, if you slowly go up, it's the animals in the upper layers could have gotten higher to avoid the floodwaters. But also even like in like the Middle Ages in Marco Polo. So Marco Polo, despite having some times where it's like, oh no, he was exaggerating, he was a liar, like said that when he was on his journey, he saw like essentially a velociraptor in a cave hissing at him. There's like cave drawings, like the Indians have stuff of dinosaurs. I think it's the Indians that have like a dinosaur like spinning something. I'm pretty sure the Egyptians have stuff. People in Peru, like cultures all over the world have like these cave drawings or carvings or images of stuff that look like dinosaurs. So
real fast, we just need to discuss the difference between macroevolution, microevolution, because we believe in microevolution. Yes. We don't believe in macroevolution. So explain the difference between macro and micro.
So microevolution is where it stays in the same species. It's actually what Charles Darwin had originally proposed. If you look at his Origin of Species, the famous finches, that's microevolution. It was still a finch. It was just a tiny change in the beak.
So going back to like wolves and wolves becoming, we can go foxes and dogs and they can stay within their kind, but it's not like macroevolution.
And to use like, for the micro, like farming stuff, it'd be like if when a cow goes to a colder climate, if it starts developing like a thicker coat or thicker hooves, like that is micro because it's still a cow. Macro is what like the most popular form of evolution is, which is like the goo turned into a fish, which turned into a frog, which turned into a monkey, which turned into a man. Like completely different species. And there is no modern day or ever evidence like, oh yeah, this thing could become this thing, which is why like it really struggles for like a hypothesis, because you have to actually be able to like witness it for you to be like, yeah, like this makes sense.
Because science has to be observable and evolution is not observable. And even if you were to try to recreate it all, it's still man being able to control all of the factors to be able. So that's why we don't believe in macroevolution. Okay. Hopefully that helps briefly just kind of answer just those three questions of, yes, there were dinosaurs in the Bible. Yes, they were part of creation story. Yes, they were in the flood, and there were some on the ark. Anything else you want to share? All right. Well, if you guys do have any other questions in regards to that, or if it sparks more, please let us know. I'm sure Noah would love to come back. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Pastor Logan Merrick, and I get the chance to pastor the local church, Christ Our Cornerstone Church in O'Neill, Nebraska. We would love to have you if you are ever in the area. Looking forward to this Sunday as I will continue part 2 to my sermon that was from this past Easter, which was about Christ, Lord, liar, or lunatic. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you Sunday. Bye-bye.